Sorry. Oh, there's always Kleenex here. Anybody got some Kleenex? No. Just a little irreverent. Ha ha ha. Thank you. Hopefully I won't need it anymore, but you never know. Well, good thing. Good thing, yeah. One of the things that, I don't know about you, in the last few weeks, a lot has been happening. And I was getting a little bit down in the dumps. So I decided that I wasn't going to do that. So I know that prayer works, and I knew that there was a shift in consciousness that I needed to make. So, so the talk is about something. Well, you'll find out. But the thing is that I chose what I'm going to say in light of that. I wanted to lighten myself up and enjoy. But I'm so excited, and I cry when I'm happy too. That the global climate agreement was agreed to. I just couldn't believe it. I'm so happy because prayer works. 196 countries agreed to something. It's a miracle. I cried when I heard it. It's not perfect, but oh my God, if you take the bigger picture, look at what we're doing. At least we're doing something to save the planet. Because all the other stuff, I don't like to watch the news because it doesn't cheer me up, except that it did yesterday. And I know it's like going forward, we actually, we can do it. We know how. Well, actually, that's not true. But we know we can do it. So that's what's so important. And in this teaching, having that consciousness and knowing that we could do it is magical. It's actually, it's putting into focus and where our energy and our attention is. That's what'll grow. And I want the global climate agreement, all that kind of stuff, the sustainability, the Earth Charter, whatever can be done to make this a world that works for everybody, that everybody can have water and food and all those things. And so I was just so excited yesterday when this happened. So thank you for sharing that with me. So what we're going to do today is focus on something else. And some of you may remember this. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It was written in 1957 by, Dr. Seuss, also known as Theodore Geisel. And I first remember it in 1969 when I was in high school, and they did that play as the winter assembly thing. And then there was, in 1966, there was the animated version, which, I don't know. I don't remember seeing it, but a lot of people have. And then the movie in 2000, which I didn't see, which got mixed reviews. Did anybody see it? Yeah. Was it good? Yeah. Okay. Jim Carrey. Yes, he was the Grinch. So, okay. So there's some endorsements. Here's why I need these, because I'm crying too. Okay. Dr. Seuss, or Theodore Geisel, said this, and I like this quote. I like nonsense. It wakes up the brain cells. Fantasy is a necessary ingredient in living. It's a way of looking at life through the wrong end of a telescope, which is what I do, and that enables you to laugh at life's realities. And so that's what it's about. It's like, yes, all that stuff's going on. Yes, I'll pray about it and know a shift in consciousness and envision and pray and know that there's a better reality to show up. But my energy wants to go to the light side as well. So you guys can just sit down. Here you go. Pretend you're a little kid. And even if you were Jewish, pretend you were a little kid, because we honor you as well. But this probably didn't happen to you when you were a little kid. And I'm going to read the story to you. And there are themes in it that I picked out, but you could pick out your own themes as well, because there's the talking about judgment, talking about community, talking about transformation, talking about forgiveness. So just relax and enjoy the story of how the Grinch stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Let's see if I can do this right. I have the Grinch. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, Grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise. Noise, noise, noise. That's the one thing he hated. The noise, noise, noise. And then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and on rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd all do something he liked least of all. With every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, they would stand together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. And they'd sing. And they'd sing. And they'd sing, sing, sing. Just like you guys. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas song, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? And then he got an idea. We know about ideas. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said. If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Poor Max. And then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number one," the old Grinchy Claus hissed. And he climbed on the roof, empty bags in his fist. And he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room, he took every present. Pop guns, bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox, and he took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee, and now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove. When he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove, he turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cold cup of water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her on the head, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went up the chimney and stuffed up the tree. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls, he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. Packed it with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-hoo to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They'll find out now that no Christmas is coming. They'll just wake up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a moment or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch. That simply I must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled for 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't thought of before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Perhaps, maybe Christmas means a little bit more. And then what happened? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end. Did you enjoy that? You know, it's not very often we get a little a story read to us. It's really fun. And I enjoyed reading it, so that's fun. Gary, I don't read to Gary at night in bed. Maybe we should do that. I don't know. Okay, so some of the themes that I noticed that I wanted to mention and talk a little bit about were the one of judgment. And because guess what? We are born with judging. It's part of us. And it's actually a good thing as long as it doesn't go negative on us, because it's part of our survival mechanism. So you are perfect, remember, we talked about that. You were going to judge. But it's the spirit that you come with it. Is it a discernment? Is it a noticing? Or is it saying that person is bad or something's wrong or da-da-da-da? So the Grinch, of course, was saying, those people, they're all materialistic and they're da-da-da-da-da. And what was the truth? What was the truth? And if you think, wow, those rich people are so awful, ugly, all these kinds of things, well, that means you can never be prosperous because you're judging something negatively. So if you're judging something negatively, energetically, you're putting a barrier in the way for you experiencing that. So it's interesting energetically with that. So it's important to watch your judgments. And if there's any place that you might be holding a negative belief, and God knows if you listen to the news, you can find lots of evidence, fear, all those kinds of things. But we could be making an assumption too. So so the assumption is kind of more subtle, and it's a little harder to catch. But it's really important to do that because we forget, like I said when we're driving the car, but we are all one. If I'm driving the car around here, especially in a parking lot these days, if I'm not in harmony and cooperating with other people and trusting other people, so it's that coming from that, I know that they know what they're doing. I know, and when they don't, I trust that it'll get better. So I just think that what is the deeper truth here that we need to look at? And then celebrating with family and friends. That's why I'm so glad that Gracie decided to do the music, with all the Christmas carols. Because I don't remember, I used to my mom used to like to be in the car and sing Christmas carols. I think that was because no one could hear us, which is probably a good thing. But that's part of the joy of the season that I think sometimes we don't experience. So I'm glad we're getting to do that here today. And the community here is so, it's a time of year that you want to be with friends. You want to be with family. You want to celebrate. You want to give hugs and kisses. And it's a choice. We all get to choose that. And it's so important to do that. And it's beyond price. The fact that we can come here and get hugs and sing together. And how often do you find yourself singing just for the joy of it? This is kind of sanctioned right now, but it could be well, you guys do it all the time. That's one of the reasons I think the music team is so strong, because you're always singing. And Dr. Seuss also said, unless someone cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So we care for each other, and we're stronger. And the fact that we are like building critical mass, if you will, is like a tipping point. And I know it goes beyond these walls, beyond this community, beyond the state, beyond, it's expansive. And one of the other themes was, of course, transformation. And the Grinch did a 180. He shifted his consciousness. And he opened up to the possibilities. And he was surprised and amazed. And now, he's eating roast beast. He wasn't doing that before. He hated it. He probably even sang a song. I don't know. Yeah. So, yes, our hearts. Our hearts are more open now, perhaps, at this time of year. But it's the truth all the time. It's not just during holiday seasons and things. That's why all the hoopla about the holidays is great, but being connected heart to heart is so much more important. And Dr. Seuss also reminds us of a couple other things, that we are co-creating with Spirit our lives in each and every moment. And I like it when he says this. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what to do. And you are the guy who decide where to go. You and God, we co-create our lives. And only you, as Dr. Seuss reminds us, can control your future. So we co-create with Spirit with every thought and idea we have. So when the Grinch had an awful idea, he created his stealing. So it's just, what is your great idea? Not awful idea. What is your great idea that you nurture and work and focus on? Where's your attention? If your attention is on that great idea, then you could get a global climate agreement. You don't know what's possible. Go for it. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about forgiveness. Because the Who's obviously forgive the Grinch. Because they fed him, they let him come to the feast. And he probably even sang. So where inside you do you need to forgive yourself? Start there. And then forgive others. There's a little sign, I don't know how many of you, not many of you drive in the back, but on the side of the center here, there's a sign that says Forgiveness Cairn. And that is a reminder of a retreat workshop we did here. And we took stones and we wrote what we wanted to forgive. And then we placed them in the cairn. And I think it's overgrown now. But what stone, what heaviness are you holding on your heart that you can release and forgive? Because that will lighten your life immensely. It's amazing. So, our affirmation for this week. Please say it after me. I consciously practice the path of peace. I consciously practice the path of peace. I consciously practice the path of peace. I consciously practice the path of peace.